Hey everybody, this is Perch. We got another viewer question about Krakoa and the X-Men, and I realize and recognize that we spend a lot of time with the X-Men era on this channel. All I can say with that is, it is my favorite comic. It was my favorite comic for a long time. It's the one that I've got a complete run of, and I do love the X-Men. I think it's a great concept, and when done well, it really works. As viewers on this channel know, and I'm not going to go through it again for everybody. I haven't been a big fan of the Krakoa era. And so, one thing, before I get to the mail that I find, I don't know if puzzling is the right word, but challenging, is that I can't remember, and help me out here if anybody disagrees, but I can't remember another place where the fandom of the X-Men was so severely divided. And what I mean by that is you have X-Men fans who've been reading the comic for a long time. And the from my experience as a comic shop owner, the X-Men fans were, I don't want to use the word rabid, but at least committed, or maybe should be committed, but definitely committed. They will, buy. I mean, there was a time in the '90s and the 2000s where you could publish a comic that said like Wolverine sitting on the toilet for 22 pages, and people would buy it, and in many cases be happy with it. And people like when they commit to the X-Men, they commit all in. It is one of the more diligent and and committed fan bases, I think, in comics is the X-Men fan base. So you have those people, but then you also have this social media spawned fan base of more current X-Men. So X-Men that fans that really believe the world started with the Krakoa era, that Vita Ayala has written the best Storm story of all time, that kind of these elements of X-Men fandom that are really less than 5 years old. People who are really, really into the comics, they believe they are the torchbearers for the X-Men. And those two couldn't be more diametrically opposed. I think a lot of the people who are long-term X-Men fans are not fans of the current run. And the fans of the current run are dismissive is too soft a word. That it is, you are wrong. If you like, for example, it's a dialogue around, you can use a lot of examples, but one would be the Bobby Drake. Was he always gay? Was this a retcon? At the end of the day, it may or may not matter. He's gay in the comics today, so that's how he's written. And so a debate over was he always gay, was that what Stan Lee intended from issue 1, or did this come around later when Bendis took over the title? You can argue about that, but it's hard to get, in my mind, it's not something you can get that passionate about. I guess you could get passionate about it saying, damn it, this is a retcon. I don't like retcons. That's fair. But if you're somebody who believes that was always what Stan Lee intended, I find the passion, last time I did a video talking about this, there were several channels, not just one, but multiple channels who did reaction videos to this, calling me a homophobe, a bigot, racist. I'm not sure exactly how race plays into it, but okay. A mouth-breathing chud, all the various words, because I said there's plenty of evidence to suggest this was not always the plan. But that's nothing you need to go to war over. That's my opinion. I showed, again, I think it's objective truth. I showed panels that I think are pretty definitive here. But again, if that's my opinion, what do you care? You have what you want today. It's a bit like, you got ice cream. You're holding the ice cream, and you're angry at somebody else who wants an ice cream flavor that the store doesn't sell. Again, what do you care? You've got your ice cream. Shut the fuck up. Enjoy it. There's a little bit of that in all this. But I find that, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any other comic book fandom where you have this such intense division between, story that's being told now, story that was told, and whether it's good or not. I mean, they're very hardened views, I think is the way to put it. Let's read this mail. I am curious to have the answer to that question. So let me know. What else? What else even comes close? Anyway. Hey, Perch. Now that the X-Men's Krakoa era is coming to an end, I was wondering if you'd be interested in doing a review of that era. I feel like Krakoa has been a very controversial era, for the X-Men and split the fan base, so it would be nice to get your thoughts on it. So this is hilarious. I did not read down the mail before I gave that intro. So no problem. There are my thoughts. Okay. So it would also be cool for you to compare it to the previous X-Men eras since the 2010s, because a lot of people hated those eras and thought Krakoa was far better than them. I do think Krakoa is better, but not by much, really. Hoxpox is the only standout to me. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. All right. So with that lead in, let's get to kind of, how the eras stack up. If I'm ranking very, very generically, if I'm ranking kind of how I feel about the different eras and where things are going, I think that Hoxpox, that 12-issue series was new. It was inventive. It was pretty cool. I think there was some really kind of innovative, cool stuff going on. And for that matter, I've done reviews on House of X Powers of 10, and they're on this channel, and you can go back and look at the comic reviews, folder or channel or whatever, the video collection of comic reviews. You'll see that I did reviews of Hoxpox there, and you should go check it out. I liked it. I thought it was bold. It was innovative. It was different. I thought there were definitely going to be problems with the No More Death, but all things considered, it was interesting. I was into it. I was curious about where it would go. It became very apparent very early, and I think those videos exist too on my channel, that it was going to go south. And the bad signs were Hickman saying the main X-Men title is going to be one and done issues, stories only. And then it was, hey, we got 6 issues rapidly a month that we're rapidly going to go to 12. That was a troubling sign. And then by the time they got to the Ten of Swords crossover, it was clear that that was a gigantic bait and switch of what the event was supposed to be. You could also see like issues like Excalibur were just it was prioritizing goofy ass stuff. There were just stories that, clearly indicated there were going to be problems. I did an interview with Brian Edward Hill, who did Fallen Angels, and that's another very fascinating interview to go back and listen to in retrospect, because he's talking about some of what he would like to do and where he thinks the X-Men go, and it's very interesting to hear kind of that story and how it was developed. I still think they did that guy dirty by that entire story and what was going on, because I think it was a cool concept that they did that. But anyway, I think that the Krakoa era started off stronger than a lot of other eras. I think it was up there with Grant Morrison's kind of initial reboot of the X-Men, the first E for Extinction, the first 3 issues. I think that it actually had more substance than the Astonishing X-Men stuff by Whedon. I think it was stronger than that at the beginning, the Krakoa era. I think that it was definitely Krakoa stronger than the Bendis stuff when it was like, let's do time travel. But I think there were plenty of comics in that era that were stronger than Krakoa. I think Rick Remender's X-Force was stronger. I think the Christopher Yost, right? Was that his X-Force? I think was stronger. I think if you look at events like the Crochet, I think that was actually a stronger event than, say, Ten of Swords. I think that there was a few in there. I think, what was the event where they killed Nightcrawler briefly? I think that, but there's also, the thing about the X-Men era from 2010 on is that there was a lot of forgettable nonsense in there. Cy Spurrier was doing X-Force. I think Brian Wood also was doing an X-Force. There was the Bishop comes back to join the team and fights demon bear mind infection. I mean, there was some dumb shit. Hope was trapped in some kind of AI avatar computer program like that. Like there was some really, really dumb stories in all this. You had the whole era where the X-Men were fighting the Inhumans and they were dying off and they lived in limbo. And Colossus was turned into the new Apocalypse in the future. And I mean, like there is some stuff you probably memory hold that was just all over the place. You had, clones of Archangel flying around. I mean, anyway, there were some questionable stories. I think Krakoa started out strong. I think, though, by the time the first year was done and they were getting into Hellfire Gala and terraforming Mars, and then it was clear that the writers had no real enemy or long-term plan. The only real source of conflict was going to be, you know, angry humans who are teaming up with robots. Even the Children of the Vault stuff had a lot of potential. They just kind of pissed away. I mean, they're just it felt like the X-Men, the Krakoa era, lost its way really, really fast. And if I took the entire Krakoa era as a whole, meaning Hoxpox all the way to whatever the hell's going on right now, I think that it's probably the weakest overall run. I would put Bendis's run above this one, because while this one I think started stronger, I think Bendis's run kept the same kind of mediocre quality through the whole thing. Whereas the Krakoa era, like the last year and a half, has just been dog shit of comics. And so I think, and even though some of that stuff was forgettable, and this is my litmus, or my scale, not yours. I think there's comics you really love and enjoy. There's comics that you recognize are solid, but you don't necessarily enjoy them. They're technically sound, but they're not necessarily your favorite things. And there's comics that are just kind of average. They're okay. There's an idea there. I would argue a lot of the Ben Percy X-Force stuff was this way. It's like, Beast turns kind of evil, and then, Quentin Quire's doing his thing. And I mean, there's stuff in there that was like, well, this isn't bad, but it's, I don't know, just kind of there. And then I think you have the stuff that's, a little bit, somewhat bad, but your brain just kind of forgets it very rapidly. Again, like that Cy Spurrier X-Force series that had Morrow on the team, and like that one was just like bad, but like you put a gun to people's heads and they won't even remember that it existed. And then I think you get into stuff that actively starts to hurt the brand. Like stuff that's bad, and it's so bad. It's like Chuck Austin's, Warren's Angel Blood can cure AIDS, or that Warren got into a relationship with Sam Guthrie's little sister, Skin, and that was also like, is this legal? There are problems there. So I mean, like the whole Nightcrawler's demon father, like there was stuff in there that was like so bad, it actually hurt the characters. Like Angel was worse by the time it was all over. Nightcrawler was worse by the time it was over. You have actual character destruction. And then you have like one step below that, which is like true brand destruction. And this is where the stories are so, offensively awful that they get it truly torches the brand. I'd argue that Jerry Duggan's Iron Man right now is in that state of, you have a very popular character from the MCU, and the character has gone through multiple deconstructions, from Matt Fraction to Kieran Gillen to several people have taken a run at that. Warren Ellis was in there somewhere, and this current one, like it's written so bad. Like the dialogue is bad, the story is bad. Feelong is not a good villain. I guess you had the Dan Slott Iron Man in there. So I mean, Iron Man's had just a series of just kicked in the balls runs for a while. And this latest one is doing, it's kind of like the final blow to destroying a comic brand. So I think that's the range. And to me, if you look at the Krakoa era as a whole, it's marked by stories that did not really matter, stories that were largely forgettable, a lot of retcons and changes to the characters that are almost impossible to undo and do not add value. For example, Betsy Braddock and Rachel Summers being in a lesbian relationship with each other is something that they can't undo that now. But does it add value? Does it make sense to the characters? I mean, any of this makes sense to the characters? Like, I mean, wasn't Betsy Braddock crushing on Doug Ramsey for a long period of time, and then was that Revianch that was with our Angel, or who knows? But anyway, you had several relationships in there. Rachel Summers is shown in the future being married to Franklin Richards. But again, whatever. I mean, again, you could do whatever you want, but you start to get to a point where, what do you do with those characters now? You can, when you write them, you've got to now have them in a relationship. It's like, hey, I've got a really cool idea for a Rachel Summers pitch. Well, how are you going to reconcile that, she's in a relationship with Betsy Braddock? It's like, well, I wasn't planning to do any of that. I was going to have her kind of revert to her hound persona and, go on a rampage and the X-Men have to stop her. It's like, oh, that doesn't really work because she's in a relationship with Captain Britain. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like this stuff starts to actually hurt the ability to tell future stories. Not completely. You could still tell a good story and the character can be lesbian, but you start to box yourself in. And I think Krakoa had a lot of stories in there that did more permanent damage. That's going to take a lot of effort and work to undo. And I think the new creative team of McKay and Simone and Ewing are going to have a hard time undoing some of that stuff. The brand's also just boring. I mean, the problem, if you're a huge fan of Krakoa, I'm sorry to say it, but, the general consensus of a lot of people who are just casually coming in, buying comics and wanting to be entertained is that the book itself is, the lineup is dull. I know Al Ewing has a number of fans, but, the general feeling is X-Men Red was often unreadable and it was dull and it introduced a bunch of characters that nobody cared about, nor will anyone hear from again. So, I think the Krakoa era is probably the worst of the bunch since 2010. There have been absolutely abysmal, shitty stories in there. And if you're an X-Men fan, the last 15 years have not been kind to you. Trust me. So we'll see. Hopefully the new creative team can turn it around, but that's where I sit with it. So how about you? Where does the Krakoa era sit with you? What's worse? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.